Christian persecution is getting out of control in this country.
Guess it's about that time to persecute some Muslims. A few days ago, there were 2 coordinated terrorist attacks in Brussels, Belgium. It left 31 people dead and about 330 injured. This was a heinous attack that ISIS has claimed responsibility for. So here in America, what's the best way to deal with this tragedy? Bigotry and discrimination. That's Ted Cruz. That's his example. In response to this heinous attack, this was Ted Cruz's statement. We need to empower law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. It's funny that, there was a terror attack somewhere else in another country. But be scared, Americans. We want you in fear, and we want you in fear of Muslims. Muslims. Only be scared of Muslims. Now, when, let's say, Dylan Roof goes into a church and kills 9 people, and he has ties to some organizations. No, we don't want to monitor those organizations. No calls from politicians to monitor hate groups or anything like that. No. But when Muslims specifically, when they're involved in terror, because only Muslims commit terrorist attacks, when they're involved in these attacks, now everybody in America that's Muslim, they should be under watchful eye.
I know the FBI does classify a lot of various groups as hate groups, and those groups are very diverse.
Yeah.
But what you don't have is politicians like Ted Cruz advocating consistently for all these groups to be or to submit themselves to Gestapo-like tactics. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You won't hear Cruz, come out against the Bundys.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? You won't see that.
So there's been a lot of pushback on his remarks, and the police commissioner in New York, William Bratton, he had some remarks, and so did President Obama, and we want to show that to you.
I would remind the senator he lives in the United States of America. And the statements he made today is why he's not going to become president of this country. Because we don't need a president that doesn't respect the values that form the foundation of this country.
As far as the notion of having surveillance of neighborhoods where Muslims are present, I just left a country that engages in that kind of neighborhood surveillance, which, by the way, the father of Senator Cruz escaped for America, the land of the free. The notion that we would start down that slippery slope makes absolutely no sense. It's contrary to who we are. And it's not going to help us defeat ISIL.
So President Obama beautifully encapsulates the hypocrisy that Ted Cruz spewed out. Cruz's own father is from Cuba, and he escaped Cuba for practices just like Ted Cruz are now advocating for.
Let's not even look at it from just the bigot angle, but think about it from, I guess, how it poses such a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
Because he says Muslim neighborhoods, and I don't think it's just that simple. It's not like all Muslims are just clustered together.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're spread out.
Exactly.
So how is that even going to work?
He talked about that in an interview with CBS this morning.
How many Muslims are in America? I don't know the number off the top of my head.
So you're saying that law enforcement should surveil a number of Muslims, and you don't even know how many Muslims are in America?
What I'm
there
saying,
are 3 million Muslims in America. Law enforcement is overwhelmed.
So you're saying we can't defeat radical Islamic
We have a
terrorism?
chief of police, one of the most respected chiefs of police, who was here earlier, who said there are no Muslim neighborhoods. It's not like Europe. It doesn't exist that way. It's impractical what you're suggesting. Also, it doesn't suggest it would lead to anything. It's more of a political point that you're making.
Nora, actually, you brought up Europe, and it's a good example. If you look at the attack in Brussels, it's a direct result of the failed immigration policies in Europe that have allowed vast numbers of radical Islamic terrorists to come to Europe. And they've been ghettoized in neighborhoods that have become isolated, that have become separate, and they become incubators for radical Islamic terrorism.
That's not a similar problem that we have here in the United States.
Of course it is. There are communities in America.
Name one community, one city, where we have a large group of radicalized Muslims.
You have communities. You have communities, for example, in Minnesota. You have communities in Michigan with heavy concentration, and you have incidences of radical imams preaching jihadism.
Just because there is a community that might have a number of Muslims doesn't mean they're radical Muslims. And he even talked about the mosque and the imams that are spreading this radical view of Islam, right? Okay, let's for 1 second say that there are some radical imams that are spreading their radical thoughts and plans for whatever, right? You know, there's some radical Christian pastors around the country as well, spreading their radical thoughts.
Talking about putting gay people in concentration camps.
Yeah, they have many views on black people as well.
What's the pastor that Cruz got up and spoke after?
Right.
What did he say?
He was talking about he was talking about how gay people needed to be killed.
Oh yeah, that's
not
right.
my words, his words.
Romans chapter 1 verse 32, the Apostle Paul does say that homosexuals are worthy of death. His words, not mine.
As radical as he is, and as many idiotic things as he said, I wouldn't consider him a terrorist. I wouldn't consider him a radical terrorist because he has radical views. Those two things don't go together.
There's a difference between classifying somebody as a terrorist and classifying somebody as dangerous.
Yeah, like Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah, just like that. They say a lot of things that spread hate. Their talk is dangerous. Kevin Swanson's talk is dangerous. You know, because you don't want that type, those views to be spread. You just don't want that to happen.
Especially if those
views. Is it terror? Is it terrorist actions?
Especially if those views are held by leaders.
Exactly.
Like Ted Cruz wants to be.
Yes.